You're listening to the Hunt Suburbia podcast. I'm your host, Pat Guyette. Big bucks I've been dreaming often, every night till I'm in a coffin. Vermont woods to the burbs of Boston, I'm looking for a tree to get lost in. Crisp mornings, little dust in the snow. Quality time, just me and my bow. Fall evenings, I know just where to go for some quality times for me and my bow. It's just me and my bow. This week I interview Chris Borgatti from the Backcountry Hunters and Anglers group. We start out by going over the differences between statutes and regulations and what Mass Fish and Wildlife have control over and what has to go through, Congress and be passed into a statute. So we're talking about like Sunday hunting and setbacks and crossbow permits and things like that, just setting the record straight on who handles what. Then we talk about the Massachusetts proposed hikes on licensing stamps and permit fees, where that money would go if the proposed fees that leaked out yesterday go into effect. We talk about land use and where the funding comes from for Mass Wildlife when they purchase new land. It's not just coming from hunters, it's coming from a general fund. So we talk about all that kind of stuff, set the record straight on all that, and then we talk about Backcountry Hunters and Anglers and what they do, their missions, their mentor and mentee program, and how to get involved there. So before we bore you too much on the intro here, let's get right into it. Here's Chris Borgatti, great guy. Hope you enjoy it. All right, another episode of Hunt Suburbia, and I'm sitting here with Chris Borgatti from Backcountry Hunters and Anglers, New England chapter, right?
New England chapter, you got it.
Thanks for coming, man. It's
glad to be here.
Snowing, a little bit of a storm out there. You had a little bit of a drive. And,
slow going. I saw one accident, one fully off the road, spun out. But that's what we got a four-wheel drive for.
Yep.
I don't know. I don't even know. Technically, again, we've kind of gotten a little soft here in New England. There's 4 inches, and people are calling it a storm.
Yeah, exactly.
It's just snow.
Yeah. It's not a real storm.
And if you're from Vermont like you are, it's nothing.
Yeah, but if you're from Texas, it's life or death.
Yeah, that's true. That's true.
What's going on? My brother-in-law lives down there. One of my best friends lives down there, and the brother-in-law is fine. Thank God, he's got a 1-year-old kid. That would suck in your house at 45 degrees. But my friend he's had his house been 45 degrees for 3 nights straight, and no power, charging their devices in their car and stuff. Hey. I love the Northeast. I hate hot weather, so I'm happy that we live up here and we can handle it.
The summers down there are brutal. But, winter, it'd be a nice place to visit.
Yep, and like you said, both being from Vermont. Well, I'm from Vermont, but you've got a camp up there, huh, in the Northeast Kingdom? Yeah,
I haven't been up there for too long, about 3 or 4 years.
Oh, really?
Yeah, and, I was kind of looking for a place to have some time in the summer and winter, and also the hunting seasons, and I've just found myself coming back to the Northeast Kingdom. Lots of reasons: the fishing, the year-round fishing opportunities are really good. Mountain biking near Kingdom trails is something I like to do. Swimming, a marathon swimmer, so it's a great swimming community up there.
Oh, wow.
And not to mention some big woods.
Some solitude.
Yeah, big woods. And so it's a small little place, like 850 square feet.
Yep.
Gets real small with 3 kids. And but it's up on a little hill, and I can look out, and I basically look into Canada. Canada's about 12 or 13 miles from.
What first drew you up there? Like, how'd you go up there for the first time?
I don't exactly remember. I think I was just going. It was one of those things where just weekend adventures. I think it was probably getting up to Lake Willoughby. I think I saw a picture like. We're going back like 20 years, and that struck me. And
I know the picture you're talking about. Now it's the one that all the Instagram models and influencers have to go. It kind of looks like you're in
Yeah, I'll tell you one thing. Those people were not there this summer, which was great because the border is closed. So a lot of our friends from the north coming down from Quebec weren't able to make it. And so
it was even more solitary.
Yeah, it was kind of nice. Kind of nice. Yeah, didn't have to fight for parking.
Peace and quiet.
Yeah.
You know, that's the one thing I miss about. So, you know, as you know, listening to the podcast, doing a lot of suburban hunting these days, and that's a challenge. And just battling. Mostly, it's not battling other hunters. It's battling eyeballs of folks who don't understand you, don't understand why you hunt. They don't understand really anything about the tradition of it, and they judge you. And a couple guys that I've had on recently, they bring up like, it's weird feeling like a criminal.
Yeah.
When you know you're not doing anything wrong. It's really a strange feeling, and I hate it. And Vermont, especially the NEK, you don't have to deal with any of that. No. Maine, you don't have to deal with any of that. Even if you go out to the Berkshires, you won't have to deal with that here. But that's one of the biggest challenges, honestly, about hunting in the suburbs. And I've been feeling it more just with some recent things that have been coming to light. Like just today, I realized that a town in Mass, Hopkinton, their select board is voting on a new bylaw to change the current bylaw, right, on discharge of firearms in the town. And they want to double the setback from 500 to 1,000 feet, and double the setback from a road from 150 to 300. And if you look at a map, that town, that essentially wipes out every hunting opportunity there.
Yeah.
And it really, I'm really pissed that a select board can have the power to destroy a lot of hunters' lives. There's probably families there that have been living there for hundreds of years, and it's steeped in their tradition.
Yeah.
And they might even, if this gets passed, they might even not be able to shoot a firearm on their own property. That they have 20 or 30 acres. You know, there are some properties like that where it's you won't even, you can't be 1,000 feet away from all the houses around you. So they're taking away a person's right to even shoot a firearm on their own property. I can't believe that kind of thing can happen.
Yeah, unless there's like a state land, a wildlife management area that has those opportunities, then you're out of luck.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, that's the case for a lot of communities, particularly here in the eastern part of the state. It's really tough, and wherever you go, that's what you're up against. And you're like you compare that to, say, the Northeast Kingdom of Vermont. Like you said, it's the long-standing culture. Two, everybody knows each other. You know, everybody knows each other. And that's one of the things I've found up there. Like, there's a few different towns where people are from, and they're all connected. Whereas here, like say in the suburbs, you may not even know your neighbors.
Yeah,
I mean, three doors down, you may not know those people. You may not even see them. You might see them drive into their driveway and drive out.
Yep,
and that's it. I think it's probably a bigger issue than just the culture of, say, hunting. A lot of it's just the culture that we're in today. We're not connected like we were. We once connected before. So yeah, it makes the conversations difficult, and it pits neighbor against neighbor, and it's a challenge, definitely a challenge.
Yeah, and it's one of those things where it's like, I know how hunters, as a collective, feel that our licenses are, the fees that we pay for licensing and stamps and all of that stuff goes into buying a lot of these WMAs and these properties that everybody can enjoy.
Yeah.
The same people who are trying to strike our rights and freedoms down with a pen, they get to go out and enjoy these lands that we are paying for.
Yeah.
And they just don't understand that, all of that money and the conservation effort and everything goes into protecting deer. It goes into ensuring that we're going to have deer for future generations. It goes into ensuring that the foxes and the rabbits and all the things that they love to see, and they have a fairy tale, version of it in their head, that these foxes and these rabbits, that fox isn't going to viciously murder that rabbit tonight, right? In their heads, everything is living in peace out there in the wild. But all of the money that we're spending on our licenses goes to conserve that. So why do they ostracize us? Why do they look at us in that light? And I think it's just, we need to educate them more but it's starting to really, I don't know. I hope that you can provide some answers and help us with how we can better communicate with, our the different agencies that are setting the laws and the regulations, and what can we do to stop or make sure that select boards and different government agencies can't just take our rights away.
Yeah, it's a complicated thing, and unfortunately, there's a ton of misinformation out there. And just like with the land acquisitions we were you were just mentioning, even that, I would say 90% of hunters misunderstand how it works. The reality is we don't pay for most of it. We do pay for it, and we voluntarily pay for it. And I don't know where you want to go or when you want to jump into this stuff, but hunters and anglers have long had a history of recognizing and seeing these problems of like habitat destruction, access and opportunity, and things of that nature. And we've stood up and basically have taken money out of our own pockets and paid for these opportunities to improve. And they have improved, over the past, say, 75, 80 years. Here in Massachusetts, the land stamp that we pay, we buy a license, it's like $5 on the top. That's something that sportsmen and women started, I think it's probably like the early 90s. And that goes into this budget that allows MassWidlife to make these land acquisitions. But the majority of the money actually comes from this thing that's called a capital bond. And a lot of that money actually is coming from like general fund taxes. So that gets put into this fund that allows MassWidlife to make these purchases, because Massachusetts real estate is expensive, right? And if it's just on $100 or fisherman dollars, we wouldn't have the resources to pay for these things. So that bond capital is the lion's share of what allows MassWidlife to make these acquisitions. And so if you really were gonna get down to it, our contribution is a lot less than we realize. Yeah, we have voluntarily taken money. Technically we're giving to this fund twice, right? Like we're getting taxed, and we're also voluntarily putting this extra land stamp on our licenses. So, user pay, user benefit type system. But the reality is,
but it's not like it's all the new land is not coming from the hunters.
No,
it is coming from a general tax fund.
Yeah, these bond capital is the lion's share of the resources. Some of it comes in too from donations. People might voluntarily donate into this fund.
Right.
There could be people who put it in their estate. And to donate money to MassWidlife. So that's another sort of avenue for that. But I think the important point though, I think is to say that that hunters and anglers, we voluntarily are giving $5 of our money to fund this fund.
Yeah.
So
really the only added if you look at the general taxpayer versus the hunter is giving $5 more per.
Yeah, we're giving a little bit more, but it's really,
so that actually isn't. That's pretty negligible.
Yeah. So, but it's a statement, right? It's an important statement. Like I said, user pay, user benefit type of system, and we have lots of systems that that's part of the funding mechanism for state wildlife agencies. We can get into that too later, but. So at the federal level, and but like I said, it's an important statement to do. Like we put that on ourselves.
Yeah.
And to give MassWidlife credit, like they've in the past 20 years or so, they've doubled the amount of acreage of wildlife management areas, which is awesome. I really don't hunt public in Massachusetts. I don't really hunt private land. I actually don't hunt any private land. I just hunt that public land. Whether that be state forest or wildlife management area. So it's a great system. But yeah, that's one of the things that a lot of us kind of don't realize is that everybody is kind of contributing to it.
Yeah. But that's also and that's totally fine too. I actually like that everybody's contributing to it, but that also it still doesn't line up with why do the dog walkers and the mountain bikers and snowshoers and cross-country skiers who don't also hunt, we accept them as sharing the woods. We've always coexisted peacefully and shared the woods with other recreators. I mean, if it's a public land, it's everybody's resource. But why is it that hunters still get the short end of the stick, and they, sometimes those other recreators who don't understand us and who we are as people and what hunting means, why are they still adversarial towards us when I don't really think it's the case the other way?
Yeah, that's a tough one, because I think part of it is a situation we've kind of put ourselves in, right? So many hunters and anglers are hardworking people, right? And so this is, they work, they've got family, and then there's this thing they look forward to all year, which is the hunting season, the fishing season. Maybe it's maybe it's the early season striped bass run, and it comes up in a lot of the rivers and stuff, tidal rivers and stuff, and that's what they want. That's what they dream about. Or maybe it's that week of work they take off during the rut. And but we haven't been great about sort of standing up and kind of making sure that we have a place at the table and having these conversations. And again, it goes back to the nature of where we live here in the suburbs, the community. We like to say fondly about we love our community, and this particular suburb has great schools and great infrastructure, but we're not, there's a little bit of selfishness that kind of percolates through it all. And I think that's kind of made our ability to communicate what's important to us a little bit challenging. It's just, it's time and the energy people have to do it. But hopefully that's going to improve, and you got things that happen that challenge our ability to enjoy these public lands, that really starts to get people to coalesce and work towards a common thing. So, we're seeing a lot of activity here in Massachusetts just the past few days. So hopefully it's going to bring a bunch of people together, and maybe we can make something a little bit better for all of us.
Yeah, so let's talk about what's happened the past few days. Proposed price increase for licensing fees and stamps by MassWidlife. And we knew this was coming. They've been completely forward about it. We just didn't know how high the increase was going to be. And I think everybody will agree. I mean, the prices, they've been cheap for years. Yeah, we've been the lowest, extreme bargain. It's been, and I would pay, and I'm happy to pay more fees, but there are a lot of hunters out there who are feeling, it's just a little bit too much. And some of the things, like a doe tag, going from $5 to $20 for a resident, $5 to $40 for a non-resident. When the state wants to shoot more does, why are they increasing the fees so much so that people might not want to spend that money on shooting more does? Yeah. And then the buck to doe ratio is going to get all out of whack, Right. So some of them seem counterintuitive, but and you did address one of the things where hunters don't want to feel like they're increasing 400%. They got to spend their hard-earned money, 4 times what they were doing previously to go out and hunt less opportunity. Yeah. So, what are your thoughts on the increases, and what can you tell us about them? Are those increases going to go towards $5 is going to go towards land in the future? But do you know how they split up the fees?
Yeah. So first off, like you said, it's been over 25 years basically since there's been a license increase, And in that time, obviously, a lot's changed, right? Inflation, cost of doing business has changed. MassWidlife has done, like I said earlier, they've done a pretty fabulous job. They've like over doubled in most hunting seasons the amount of time in the field, which is huge. Like I think 25 years ago, I think there was like the deer season was maybe 30 days.
Yeah.
So that's increased. I mentioned already the land acquisitions doubled. A bunch of the other seasons. I think the only one that hasn't like doubled might be the waterfowl, but that's like federally a federal managed type of system. So they've done a good job with what they've had. However,
limited funds.
Limited funds, and keeping in mind that the number of hunters has dramatically decreased in that period of time. The number of fishermen buying licenses it's been pretty steady, but hunting numbers has decreased pretty dramatically. I think the sportsman license, I wish I had paid closer attention. It's like 40%, 50% decline in 20 years for the sportsman's license. So that's pretty big numbers. Now, they probably should have addressed this a long time ago, right? They really should have addressed this a long time ago, because they've essentially gotten themselves into a situation where the inland fisheries and game fund is going to run out of money in about 3 years. So they need to raise funds.
Where does that fund come from?
So the fisheries and game fund comes from our licenses. Comes from two sources: our license fees and also from the federal government. So on the license fee side, like we have in our Massachusetts general laws, Chapter 131, Section 2C is a law that sort of states that all the monies collected for permits, stamps, licenses for fishing and hunting have to go into the inland fisheries and game fund. So it's not going anywhere else. It's going there, and it's going to be used for the purposes and management of fish and game in Massachusetts,
including like EPO salaries and all that stuff, or is that separate?
I don't know on the EPOs. I want to say it's separate because EPOs, their mandate is pretty broad. They also do a lot of the fisheries stuff and things like that. So I think it's safe to assume that they're separate. And I know a lot of people we're talking about like the number of EPOs. And I just at the last wildlife, just as a side note, I think they've just brought on 4 new officers that are going to get trained. But in any case, so that's the first part: fishing licenses, hunting licenses, your tags. Everything goes into this game fund. The other two sources, or the other sources, are federal sources, and those are from the basically the Wildlife and Sport Fish Restoration Program, and this is these two programs. The Wildlife Restoration Program was started back in 1937, and this is one of the like again user pay, user benefit type systems that hunters, recognizing a declining game across the country, said we need to do something about it, and basically created this piece of legislation that puts an excise tax on any of the stuff that we buy for hunting. So
yeah, all
our gear, bows, ammo, camouflage, like everything gets. And this is the Pittman-Robertson Act, by the way, and it goes into this fund. And it's a little bit of a funky calculation. Basically, the calculation from this fund, and we're talking about a lot of money, right, nationwide. This fund is based on the area of your state and the number of licenses that you have. So they get put into this formula, and the state cuts a check. The state has to provide the license information to the federal government, and they cut a check. The other one is a sport fish restoration program that was basically based on Pittman-Robertson, and this is the Dingle Johnson. It was 1950. Same deal, land area and number of licenses.
So as our license numbers decline, we're getting less and less.
Oh, you're starting to put it together. Yeah. So this is where it gets really tricky, right? So license numbers are really important. Land area is important. We can't do anything about that, right? Massachusetts is a relatively small state. So say relative to, say, Pennsylvania, huge land area, crazy number of licenses.
Yep.
They get a big slice of the pie, which they should.
And where does this money go to?
So this money then gets put into the
management of the land, or
so it has to be spent for the purpose of for like fish and game. It has to be spent for those.
But it
those
can't
things.
be spent on buying new land.
That
comes from the different land stamp and the land fund, or
Yeah.
can this also be used to buy land?
I'm pretty sure it can be used for projects, enhancement projects, asset access projects. Maybe you could probably, again, you'd have to talk to an expert of like the mandate of how these laws are operate at the local level.
Yeah, and I know you know.
Yeah.
I'm beating you up like
no.
like you know everything. But.
And we'll get back into to my education and all this, but yeah. So sport fish restoration, wildlife restoration, these were again examples of user pay, user benefit programs, just at the federal level, using this formula. So as you pointed out, if Massachusetts license sales go down, and with a license hike they will. The number, that amount of money that we'll get from federal aid will also decrease. So now it also depends too on other factors. So like how big the pot is. So this past year, a lot of boats were sold. This past year,
oh my God, a lot of everything.
A lot of guns were sold. A lot of ammo was sold.
Yeah.
So we can expect to have a bigger, the pot being a little bit bigger.
Yeah.
But how that, like the timing of it all, that we'll have to see how that plays out. Again, you'd have to talk to someone at MassWidlife who understands those mechanisms a little bit better. But that's how that works.
And somebody at MassWidlife, I'm assuming, had to have ran a model that said, okay, if we do increase the prices, then we're going to shrink the total license pool by this amount, which is going to shrink this amount of dollars from the national fund.
Yeah.
But the amount of the price hike is still going to leave a net gain.
So,
they had to have done that, right?
So if you look at studies along this particular line, this sort of situation, and this has happened before in other states, right? Like, so states have been put into budget positions where they have to do something and they have to raise prices, and these oftentimes follow with a decline in license sales. Now, most studies show that these declines sort of level off after 3 years, but
first year people are making a statement.
Yeah,
I'm not
first year
doing
people
it.
make a statement, and then people are like, "Man, I missed this. Like, it was pretty good. Like, there's a lot of doughs, and I want to fill my freezer." And Maine and Vermont kicked my butt, and not to mention I had to spend 4 hours in the car to get up there.
Yeah.
So. So that becomes the other reality, and MassWidlife knows that. They know that that they're going to lose some numbers. But how I see it, and I've attended a bunch of the different sessions. They are in a financial tight spot. The way they've proposed these licenses, the license hikes, will sort of set them up for hopefully in the next 10 years. But it's tough, my concern and the people that I work with at BHA, our concern is that how it's going to impact retention and recruitment and reactivation of hunters, and that barrier to enter. There's definitely a need for a price increase, but we were all pretty surprised at just how high an increase this was.
So. Hunters also can say, and they do say, why are we the only ones? And again, I know that a lot of the money will come from a general fund, at least that land, the land buying, purchasing power is going to come from general taxes. But above and beyond that, we are not only funding some additional land purchases with the stamp, but all of the excise tax and the federal stuff that you just mentioned, and the fisheries fund that we have here, that's coming from only our license sales, and that goes into managing the land that we buy, and all the folks who, the general taxpayer isn't contributing additionally to that, but they are using it more than hunters.
Right, they can voluntarily contribute, but sure it's the small
Yeah.
amount. Yeah.
But go to any WMA or state forest or whatever. I would bet, I don't know the numbers, but I would bet 5% of the people using that land are hunters, and it's 95% everybody else.
Yeah. Yeah, and that's the reality. Like, we unfortunately are a small minority in the big picture. I mean, another place to look at it is the federal wildlife refuge system, paid for by hunters, duck stamps, and that was a successful mechanism to create these great federal public lands. Only in the past year, some of the access for hunting has increased in those wildlife refuge system. You can get in there, and some of the ones in Massachusetts, you can do some deer hunting in, and small game hunting, which wasn't previously available. The waterfowl season has been available for some time, but yeah, for the most part, yeah, it's reasonable to conclude that we are kind of getting squeezed out in a lot of these places. Now, I will say, in the case of MassWidlife, and a lot of people were quick to jump and to attack them. My experience working with them is that they're on our side.
I was gonna say, most of them are hunters and fishermen, aren't they?
Yeah, like, you see some of the pictures that MassWidlife puts up of, like, some hunter with a real nice buck. That's a MassWidlife employee.
Yeah.
So they really, in the state level, they're really our best allies. So we have to kind of keep that in mind.
And if you can criticize hunters, we are a feisty bunch sometimes, and like you said, we're hardworking, and you can jump to a reaction real quick. And there were a lot of reactions that were very negative.
Yeah.
And it was just shoot from the hip reaction without being educated on everything. So I'm happy that we're going through some of this stuff. It hopefully is going to educate a lot of folks. But I encouraged a few people to, when I saw what was going on in Hopkinton and in this town meeting coming up. I encourage people to write to the select board there, but write politely and do a good job at articulating on why we hunt and that we are safe, and how our money does go, and to help conserve for the future and all of that stuff. Because hunters, you can be your own worst enemy if we're swearing and we seem super angry on public forums. That's only going to give us a bad name. So we have to, hunting has a bad PR as it is. We are our own worst enemy sometimes. We have to stop infighting. We have to stop with the,
Yeah, I mean,
the way we present.
I don't know if you've ever been to a Fish and Wildlife Committee like public hearing, but emotions run high. Like, we love this. Like, we love to hunt and fish. Like, this is our lifestyle. This is how we, feed our families. We're choosing to catch fish, or to hunt this amazing protein to bring to and share with our friends and family.
A part of you would die if that was taken away from you.
Yeah, right? And so it's a very meaningful thing for a lot of people. And so when you go to these hearings, people do get really, really emotional. People get angry. And I get it. Like, I'm right there. That's why I got involved in this stuff. But it's one of those, like, the old, cooler heads prevail. Not everybody on that board are hunters and anglers. Like, a bunch of them are, but some of them aren't. And if in that room there's different viewpoints, and sometimes take the dog walk. You mentioned dog walking earlier. I was at those hearings. Oh my goodness.
Yeah, I didn't even know about these hearings. What were those hearings about?
So, MassWidlife listened. They recognized the fact that people were walking dogs and not cleaning up after themselves, running their dogs. Dog walking services were utilizing these public spaces, public lands for their businesses. You heard stories of people. Like the pheasant stalking program, and people are running their dogs, and dogs are grabbing pheasants, and that people aren't paying licenses, and that's it's a lot of money. Every pheasant represents a good amount of money. So there was a lot of that stuff. So MassWidlife heard that, and they proposed some new regulations where dogs had to be leashed. You had to clean up after your dog, and like all that sort of stuff. Obviously, people who are engaged in hunting or hunting training are able to do so, assuming they have a hunting license. So the dog walking community, the dog community came out in force, and hunters, they love their dogs too. Like a lot of the bird field trials folks came out, and they love their dogs just as much as these other people who are non-hunters.
Yep.
And there is common ground there, right? But it was difficult because it got very emotional in that space. Ultimately it worked out. I know a lot of people are not quite satisfied with the enforcement, but it's a difficult thing. It's going to probably take some time.
So from the non-hunting dog owners, what was their major issue with it? That they had to leash their dogs?
Leash their dogs, yeah. Some of these wildlife management areas exist in towns where there's no leash law. So, that was one kind of argument. There was emotional testimony all across. Like people were talking about how it was really important for dogs to be able to run wild and free, and things along those lines, and for the exercise, and there's no place where they can do it. That's an issue. You're right. It's difficult but that's sort of a.
Well, there's dog parks.
There are but not in every community.
Yeah.
So that was one of those sticking points. So, we submitted testimony at those hearings, and also some written testimony. Really sort of calling for the need to regulate and start some leash laws to make that space a bit more friendly to the hunting community. But it was an eye-opening. It'd been a little while since I've been to one of those really packed. I mean, it was standing room only, and it's you would never think that would be the case for an issue like that. So.
Yeah, and I know firsthand some places that I hunt that are, there's you have to have your dog on a leash law there, but I've hardly ever seen a dog on a leash still.
Yeah, yeah.
And so people are not obeying it.
Yeah.
And that goes back into the whole, if they're not going to obey those laws, then how can you expect the hunter to see that and then want to obey all the laws and restrictions that are getting put on them when they already feel like they're being unfairly?
Yeah, it's definitely frustrating, but it's one of those things where the story, the narrative of a person getting a fine or a ticket because they did not have their dog on leash is a non-story, whereas a hunter breaking some regulation gets a little publicity. That's a story that will float around. So, and
I also saw in the proposed amendment on this Hopkinton bill, there was also a dog. There was something in there about dogs, and you had to register your dog if they're 6 months or older. They have to be registered, and if not, it's a $50 fine or something. It's a civil fine. But then under the discharge of a firearm, that was all that whole amendment that is geared towards restricting hunter access and taking away their livelihoods and all of that and killing a part of them. Imagine if you lived there and you're excited to take your son out and teach him hunting and all the things that come along with that, and then it gets taken away. Under that law, it said police are able to enforce this one, right? So the dog law, no, but the hunters, police officers are going to be able to enforce that. Yeah. It's just.
Yeah, it's frustrating. It does get frustrating, but that this is why part of the reason why I wanted to sort of chat with you about is just like the importance, I think, of getting people sort of involved in these issues and engaged. And maybe you don't have the time to attend a hearing, but if you can join a conservation organization, that there's definitely strength in numbers, and there's so many examples we can point to where hunting, fishing communities sort of come together with some representation, and it makes a difference. Like very recently in California with bear hunting, for instance.
Yeah.
It didn't take much after the hunting community kind of coalesced a little bit.
So what was that issue, and how did the hunting community come together?
I can't speak too much detail on it. I've been pretty busy here in Massachusetts, but there was a couple bills, like I believe, dealing with that was proposing to ban bear hunting. I don't know like all the details, but basically a bunch of the hunting community came together, and in pretty short order the bill was kind of dropped just like that. They cited COVID challenges and bandwidth issues, but it was dropped. And
so was it kind of like a virtual coming together, signing a petition type thing? And
letters, calls, all that kind of stuff, and it happened quick. That bill will be back. All these things are going to come back, but that's the nature of the game.
Yeah. So with an organization like Backcountry Hunters and Anglers, if folks join that, can they expect that the organization comes together to help lobby against things like this?
Yeah. So
I
should talk a little bit about BHA, so you know a bit about it. So Backcountry Hunters and Anglers, basically. We are the sportsman's voice for public lands, waters, and wildlife. So what does that mean? It basically means that we want to have public lands and waters for us to go hunt and fish, and we want to have fish and game there to pursue, right? That's the main thing. We're the fastest growing conservation organization on the continent. About 6 years ago, there was 1,000 members. Now there's over 40,000. And so something is definitely connecting with people, and it's the demographics are really interesting. About 70% of our the membership is under the age of 45, which in this space, in the rod and gun angling space, to have a conservation organization that has a average age that young is definitely important as we're facing people aging out. So that's important. Also on the demographic side, it's really split in terms of political affiliation. About a third independent, third Democrat, third Republican, maybe a little bit more Republican than Democrat, and some people who just don't name their affiliation. But basically the work falls into three buckets, what we kind of involve. What we do, access and opportunity. So, making having, it could be something as simple as boots on the ground, a access project type thing, or cleaning up trash at a particular place, or more at the federal level, the Land and Water Conservation Fund. So working those types of issues. The other issue is fish and wildlife habitat. So clean air, clean water, healthy ecosystems, but also kind of fitting into that bucket are our special places. Those places that we kind of, a lot of us recognize as being really important. So maybe Green Mountain National Forest or White Mountain National Forest. When I think about White Mountain National Forest, for me, I think about the Pemigewasset Wilderness area. I used to go backpacking there and go brook trout fishing. There's a couple little ponds back in there. And then some rivers that little pools that you could go catch wild little brookies in.
When I think about it, I went to Waterville. This winter to go skiing once.
Yeah.
And oh my God, the view you can see and just how expansive the wilderness is there.
Yeah. And those are there's capital W wilderness there, and that's special. And White Mountain National Forest is an amazing story, and it's unlike a lot of our other national forests. But so the last bucket is fair chase ethics that BHA is involved with, and this is a complicated one, right? Because we all have slightly different ethics, right? One person might be totally cool with live action cell cams, using that during for around the seasons or whatever, and then another person might not be. But we all have our own different handicaps. Maybe, someone's a trad bow guy and another person's like,
yeah.
compound. So like we do all those different things, but there are some things like as a community under this idea of fair chase ethics that we it's important, I think, that we recognize that maybe some things are a little bit too much, right? Too
For
far.
sure.
And it's important for our community to recognize that and talk about it and make those decisions as opposed to outside forces. So that's sort of the third bucket. So yeah, access and opportunity, fish and wildlife habitat, and then fair chase ethics. So that's sort of like the stuff that we work on. And for how it works, we've got chapters all across the United States and then into Canada as well. For some chapters are state-based and other chapters are sort of regional. Like so for us, it's the New England chapter. And we have a board of generally about 2 people from each state that sort of come together to look at some of the larger issues and work on sort of specific policy statements and things like that.
And you're the co-chair of the Massachusetts board, right?
Yeah. So I'm on the New England board, and I co-chair the Massachusetts state leadership team. So each state has its own state leadership team, and so that's where we sort of localize what we work on. So our state leadership team has about like 10 or 12 men and women, just super down to earth hunters and anglers, and with great insights, right? Like tons of experience and some professional backgrounds in these areas, and we're just trying to represent those 3 areas, and we get support from the national organization. We have people in DC that can help with some of the federal stuff, and then we have professional staff that support our chapter and can give us insight, resources, and things like that to work on certain issues. So, so for instance, like the New England chapter as a whole has been talking about Sunday hunting, right? So we have a concentration in the United States. We've got definitely a little bit of a concentration of states that don't have Sunday hunting, and so some of the BHA work that's taken place in Pennsylvania has kind of successfully opened up some opportunities for Sundays in Pennsylvania, and so we can drop.
They tested it out, right? This year?
Yeah, they tested it out. It was this year, yeah, and I think they did 3 Sundays, I believe it was. So so we can take from the professional experience of the staff as well as other volunteers like ourselves that are in the Pennsylvania State Leadership Team and share information.
Can you walk us through? So how did that come about? How did the Pennsylvania team and what are the steps and who are they talking to?
Yeah, again, I'm not the expert on Pennsylvania's business, but it was definitely a coalition of user groups, right, or of different hunting organizations. It wasn't just BHA.
Yeah.
There was the traditional rod and gun clubs, and some of the other more local organizations that kind of really came together, got the messaging right. They definitely did. I've seen, like, I looked at the documents for like what we can take to work on some of the stuff that we do here in New England, and they made some really good cases on a bunch of different points. One, on the economic aspect of it. Like there's been a number of studies that show that license sales will increase if those Sunday hunting is available. And it's a marked difference. And this particular last study looked at was like a 6-year period of time where this increase was felt.
And if MassWidlife increased even at the current rates that they were proposing that leaked out yesterday, but they opened up Sunday hunting, they would not see a decrease in license sales.
It'd be tough to say. Yeah, I mean, I think there'll probably still be some because it's a big, it's a big price jump, and but yeah, it would definitely stop the bleed a little bit, or the melt, as more like we've been calling it a bit.
I think it would a lot, because I think most guys that are hunting in Massachusetts, like you said, they're working 9 to 5, 6-7 days a week. They might only get 1 or 2 days in a whole season to hunt sometimes, and that would just open up 6-7 more days, right?
Yeah. Yep. So
12 more days if it's all the way through.
we can. Do you want to talk Sunday hunting, because that's another complicated issue?
Yeah. I want to keep going with the Pennsylvanian. How did they? And you might not know exactly, but who did they talk to? Did they talk to the Pennsylvania Fish and Game, or did it have to go through Congress? And how does that work?
Yeah, so I don't know. I believe it was a statute like it is in Massachusetts. So it's not, again, I don't know for certain, again, not from Pennsylvania, but I'm pretty confident that it was a statute like it is in Massachusetts. So that means that the Fish and Game Agency cannot change that. So a lot of people you saw online, a lot of people were like, well, give me Sunday hunting, you're going to raise prices.
Yeah.
MassWidlife can't do that. It's not in the power. It would take a piece of legislation or a vote for that to change. Obviously it's heavier lifting, I would say, probably here in Massachusetts than it was in Pennsylvania, given what we talked about earlier, the sheer number of hunters in Pennsylvania and the culture that exists there. Now, I would speculate that the Pennsylvania Fish and Game was probably for it, right? MassWidlife has testified, their officials have testified to committees that this is something that they'd be in favor of, but it's not in their power. And I should also point out too that when there's pieces of legislation like this, employees of MassWidlife can't lobby for something. They're state employees. They can't.
But you can, right?
We can. Not me. All of us
yes,
can.
Yes. BHA and hunters as a whole.
We can. Yep. And that's an important thing to understand. So, we get frustrated with these price increases, but the reality is, in terms of Sunday hunting, they can't do anything about it. Mm-hmm. And for Pennsylvania, I'm not exactly sure how it kind of unfolded, or the little details or nuances. They got something, small start, but it's definitely something.
So you would say, is BHA's stance on Sunday hunting that you're for it? It expands the opportunity, or is there?
I think we're certainly leaning in that direction, but there's a lot of questions we have. Okay, so we haven't in the case of say Maine, for instance, that position statement's still under development. They're further along than we are in Massachusetts, just because we've got a little bit more on our plate. And there's a bunch of Sunday bills that have been filed here in Massachusetts. There's three or four that have been filed in Massachusetts. So each one is slightly different. I think HD 767 is probably the one that has the most legs. It's got, last check, I think it had 14 co-sponsors. So, but there's questions that before. So the other thing about BHA is we like to be informed by science-based wildlife management practices. So because we are not just the voices for ourselves, we're also the voices for the resource, for the wildlife. So the questions that come with Sunday hunting, are how is it going to impact the resource? So there's two ways you can look at it, right? Mm-hmm. There's one, it's going to be negligible, right? Small, it's a little impact. Maybe they have to sort of tweak the antlerless permits in a few zones, right? The other potential is that it's going to have a significant impact, right? So you're talking major reduction in
buck population.
So antlerless tags would have to go down in some cases. Maybe they shorten the seasons. Age class.
Definitely, yeah.
Age class will be impacted for sure. Mm-hmm. There'll be by some statistics that you look at, they say about 25 to 30% reduction in mature bucks.
And Massachusetts right now has a good age class. It's pretty good compared to states around here.
Yeah, and part of that has to do with it being difficult to hunt.
Yep.
So we want to have more of those answers of what that's going to look like before we would come to a position, like an official position statement. So we're looking at it, and up until the state deer biologist took a job actually in Pennsylvania. He's gonna be in for it there. But they at the I think it was on Monday or Tuesday, the fisheries board promoted a biologist within MassWidlife to become the new state deer biologist. So once they get their legs underneath them in the new position, that's definitely something that we'll be inquiring about. Like, can you give us a better understanding of what would happen? Because personally, it'd be great to have Sundays. But I know a lot of guys who would benefit from that, and give them huge access and opportunity increase. But we have to look at the whole picture, and sort of see where it falls.
And I've heard the hypothetical that, let's say that we do get Sunday hunting passed in Massachusetts, but you can't sit there and think that can just happen in a vacuum, and Sunday hunting, because that, like you said, it is going to affect the age structure and many different things. So there might be, you get Sunday hunting, you lose a buck tag or something, right?
Yeah. Yep.
There would be a balance out effect to make sure that the herd didn't lose its quality. And
sure, and no hunter is going to argue. We want to protect that resource.
Yep.
We want to have that resource be healthy. So yeah, I think it's an important thing to look at. And so these bills, so it's like HD 1535, HD 950, and then HD 760, HD 767. That's the one that has the 14 co-sponsors. So what we tell our membership is to.
What are those bills?
Those are the Sunday hunting bills.
Oh, so there are 3 that are open and going.
So these are all bills that have just been kind of filed. So basically, what we tell people, if people ask us what are you doing about Sunday hunting? Well, call your representative and ask them to co-sponsor it. So that's the first step, to get your local representative to co-sponsor it. Because if they co-sponsor it and there's enough, it communicates to them that this is an important issue to one of their constituents. So that's huge. That's the first step.
But if it's just one constituent, it can fly under the radar. So that's where the strength in numbers really comes into play.
Yeah, but
right?
Again, they're going to be most responsive to their own constituents. So
but if you got 20 people sending an email or calling your rep as opposed to just one,
they're going to look at they oftentimes will look at zip code, they'll look at address, their aides, if they have aides, that's what they'll do. So where as an organization where we can make a bigger impact is when these things go into committee. When they go into a committee, like the Natural Resources Committee or whatever, then we can really target our response as an organization and kind of, sort of put a little pressure on them and let them know that, hey, we've got numbers. We are one of the largest organizations in Massachusetts, and we're growing fast. Our membership is young, it's educated, it's hunters and anglers, men and women, and so this is how we feel about it. And I think that's where at the organizational level, that's where it starts to really sort of weigh in our favor. But early on, like this early point in time, it's really people contacting their local reps and asking for that co-sponsorship. So, and there's a ton of hunting laws. So my day, a lot of people, when they wake up in the morning, they get their coffee or get going, they might go on maybe you go on Boston Bow Hunter. Maybe you go on your Instagram feed. What I do is I go to the Senate clerk and House clerk office website, and I type in the keyword hunting, and I see what pops up. This is what I do this time of year. And stuff pops up a lot. And there's a number of active hunting related bills that we have our eyes on.
So I want to encourage everybody listening then to go to that website. What is the website?
Off the top of my head, so you just have to search for Massachusetts House clerk or Massachusetts Senate clerk, and they have a key
that's going to show all the bills on the docket, and then you can
search by keyword, so you'll see. So we type in hunting, we type in fishing, and you sort of see what pops up.
I talk about it all the time. One thing that is awesome about hunting is that there's so many different ways that you can hunt. You can always keep your hunt fresh by using different weapons or hunting in different seasons. Some state has an early season, some have a late season. You can hunt a buck here and a doe there and a Saturday here and a Sunday there. Well, one of the easiest ways to change up your hunt, if you haven't got into muzzleloader hunting yet, muzzleloader is a great way to extend your season. In New Hampshire, it's early, before the rifle season, before the bow season. In Vermont, it's late, it's at the end. But muzzleloader hunting is awesome. And so I'm super excited to announce a partnership with Woodman Arms muzzleloader. This muzzleloader actually shoots like a rifle too. And the coolest part about Woodman Arms is they recommend that you not clean your gun. Yeah, you don't need to clean your Woodman Arms muzzleloader. Now, muzzleloaders are the messiest guns out there. You're shooting powder that's either loosely packed or in a pellet, and just imagine lighting that thing on fire in there. It's an extremely messy thing, but with the Woodman Arms, the way they build it, you don't need to clean that muzzleloader. That's number one selling point in the world. But once you hold this thing, it feels like a rifle. It just feels right in your hands. It's got a hammerless action, so there's absolutely no hammer on the gun. It's got a crossbolt safety. It feels like you're carrying your 7600 through the woods. I'm extremely excited about this partnership. They're making me a gun right now. Throughout the summer as I'm shooting it and into the fall and getting ready, I'll report back on how it shoots, but you don't have to look any further than all the reviews and all the really great hunters in the Northeast and across the country. Really, they're selling all over the country because they're the best muzzleloader in the country. Look at what everybody else is saying about this gun. That's enough for me to endorse it without ever shooting one, but I can't wait to shoot one and follow up with you guys and tell you how it is this summer, this fall. For now, go to woodmanarms.com. Check them out. You can build your own custom gun right there. Call Timmy Bolduc, who was on this podcast and is a good friend of mine, and he'll tell you anything that you need to know about the gun. Woodman Arms, America's most accurate and dependable muzzleloader on the market, handcrafted in New Hampshire. Go to woodmanarms.com and start building your gun today.
And like I said, there's a bunch of different issues that we have ranging from using non-lethal population control methods.
What does that even mean?
That means so that particular bill was filed by a rep who is not a fan of what's going on in the Blue Hills hunt. So the idea is that particular bill, which I can't remember the number off the top of my head, that bill is basically wanting to take away that's a piece of public property there. It's not under the municipality. It's not municipality owned. They want to be able to apply their local ordinance and against discharge and all that sort of stuff, and apply that on that property, and force the state to use non-lethal means of population control. So
throw them in a bag and relocate them.
They want to study them and then maybe sterilize them, birth control, things like that. I think that's the objective there. But yeah, so there's bills like that. There's a bill that was filed specifically in Revere. Somebody doesn't like the sea duck hunting that's taking place, and they want to move the setbacks to 1,000 or 1,500 meters from, or yards from, the shoreline, which is basically almost a mile, right? Out to sea, not safe, it's just, so we have our eye on that, because if that happens for that community, if it gets somewhere, and that one probably won't, then we need to be concerned about it, because it could have impacts to other places.
You don't want to set precedent somewhere, because exactly. Give an inch, take a mile, right?
Yeah. There's another bill, for instance, related to old growth forests. So this particular bill was sort of pushing the state-owned land, so wildlife management areas, state forests, things like that, to establish old growth forests, basically no forest management. What that basically does, it makes this habitat, get stuck at a certain age, and
it's like the Adirondacks.
Yeah, exactly. So, and the reality is most private landowners in Massachusetts, when most of the land is privately owned, they aren't doing habitat management projects, right?
No.
They're not doing selective harvests and timber harvests and things like that. So the age structures are pretty consistent. So, but the state's doing all these different habitat projects using our license fees to do those projects. They want to sort of take that power away from them. And in this particular bill, there's some language about, if necessary, taking hunters and anglers out of those old growth forests if there's an impact, a designated impact. So that's something that we're watching, and that's been around for a little bit, and they've got some very notable people on their side, and so we want to watch that. We have to recognize that again, sportsman's voice for public lands, waters, and wildlife. There's a lot of species that rely on that edge habitat, on that young new growth forest. So
not to mention, like,
landscape.
There's a lot more feed in a new growth forest.
Exactly.
Like the old growth forest, the only feed is going to be mast crops,
Exactly,
and they don't come every year.
Yep.
And that's going to make the the entire deer population be less nutritious. They're the quality of the herd and their the quality of their health is going to decline.
Yep. Yeah. So there's a lot out there, and so as an organization, as a state leadership team, we're trying to track this stuff and see where it goes.
Where do these bills generally go? Like,
Well,
like, and I
usually
don't know
nowhere.
much about it, but it's like
usually nowhere.
So they don't get
They'll go into a committee and they don't come out. So they'll
so
go
not
into
everything even makes it to the floor for a vote, right?
Right. Yep. So a lot of things just kind of die there, and you don't hear anything. Other times, if it gets to the point where there might be a public hearing, then we'd probably be involved before that point in time if it's something that it's sort of in one of our three buckets. But fortunately, they're on the sort of the those types of bills, there really hasn't been too much in recent years in that statute side of things that we've had to, be involved in. And, as I said, in terms of our organization, BHA, we're new in the scene in this particular landscape, So in our time, yes, we haven't had to deal with that.
So let's go real quickly back to like town laws and when town statutes are coming up and bylaws.
Yeah.
And you can use this Hopkinton one as an example again. What that goes against your the first goal, right?
Yep.
Of that would decrease the opportunity for anybody who hunts in that area.
Yeah.
To almost nil, right? Yeah. So you guys have and all hunters, but I'm talking about BHA specifically. Yeah. There should be an interest there to make your voices heard on behalf of all the hunters.
Yeah.
Right? So what can you do in a town ordinance?
So a town one is difficult, right? So, for us to put, and again, we're a grassroots volunteer organization. So we all have jobs and want to go fish, want to go hunt, families and all that sort of stuff. So there's definitely a bandwidth that we are working with. So in this particular case, for it to kind of get on our radar where we can make an impact, we would have to look at what is available for public land. That's where we have to sort of stay in our lane there, because it becomes a little bit more challenging when we're talking about private land decisions, right? And those community decisions, it becomes a little bit more difficult for us to get involved. Also because we may not have any members in that town. And if there's no public land and it's a permission only situation, it's hard for us to to advocate for. We would certainly give resources and share ideas with people that if people had questions that something was going on in their community and that we could sort of give them some ideas and some support and some like that would probably be. But on a lot of these local issues, it really comes down to the hunters in those communities making their voice heard. That's really the key thing. So
it would take a lot more research on your end, but it feels like you want to take a break.
Yeah, no, I'm just gonna take my sweater off here.
Yeah,
Sorry.
it's hot.
Yeah, it's hot.
Yeah. My wife likes it hot in here. I mean, I would live in a 65-degree house if I could.
You're grilling me these tough questions. Pennsylvania, I don't know what's going on in Pennsylvania.
Yeah, and I hope I'm not coming across as grilling you. It's nice to have somebody who is very informed on this.
Oh, I can't say I'm very informed. I'm sort of clued in.
You're much more informed than anybody else that I've interviewed on.
Yeah, all right.
This stuff.
Fair enough.
So it's great. And I do want to get to the mentor-mentee program, which we will, but I want to tie up a few loose ends. But.
Yeah. So long story short on that, like the local issues are a tough one, right? They're a tough one for us as a volunteer-based organization to sort of put, with the absence of public land, it's a tougher thing.
But yeah, I think there is.
It's definitely access and opportunity, right?
Yeah.
But for hunters,
and I believe Hopkinton is not a permission-only town, so it's like hunters have been, there are big tracts of land that hunters probably have been hunting for generations, and this will effectively wipe it out. And I hear you on the bandwidth thing, but it feels like, shooting an email with a generic stance on what your organization does, a way to paint, the hunter in a good PR light, and coming from an official organization, that feels like that could make an impact.
Yeah. So, I would say the pathway, in this particular case, as I'm thinking about it, and this is new to me, again, there's a lot going on in Massachusetts right now, as I just sort of laid out.
Every day I pull up Boston Bow Hunter, and it's like a different issue. Yeah,
so I guess there is Hopkinton State Forest. Is that a thing? Am I making that up?
Yeah, there's a state park in Hopkinton.
DCR, right? I think so. It depends on whether or not they allow.
They don't allow hunting.
Now, I actually did hear in the last Mass Fisheries Wildlife Board meeting that there are some DCR properties that are going to be hopefully coming online for hunting opportunity. I don't know what those properties are, but that's good news. DCR is being a little more open with some of their properties, and hopefully that continues.
Yeah, that'd be great.
Yeah.
All right. So before we go into the mentor-mentee program, can you tell Massachusetts hunters, what does MassWidlife have the ability to control in terms of can they change the setbacks?
Yeah.
Which things can they control?
So this is the difference between statute and regulation. So statute are things that, again, like I said earlier, would take like a bill being filed and sort of a bill to pass through the legislation to change a statute. Hunting setbacks, Sunday hunting, all that's statute. Regulations, that's a different thing. That does fall under MassWidlife. The board can make a vote to change a particular regulation. So that's the big difference. And so, for instance, one regulation that we're looking at, and this is an interesting one now because of the new proposed pheasant stamp. So let's say, I'm not sure if you're familiar with the regulations for wildlife management areas, but if they're stocked with pheasants, you can't start hunting until sunrise, and it ends at sunset. Mm-hmm. So you're effectively taking away an hour of hunting time, the best hunting time, from small game, archery, and waterfowl hunters, right? Because it falls during the archery deer season. So, that's a regulation that there was probably some good intention that was, made, or maybe the people weren't quite sure, but that's been around for a while. Mm-hmm. And I think, again, with the advent of a user pay system with that particular pheasant stamp, I think it's a very good, strong argument to change that to allow, deer hunting. Now, I'm not going to say that it's going to be great deer hunting in a wildlife management property that's being stocked with pheasants that have dogs running around and shotguns being blasted constantly and trucks going in and things like that nature. But it's an opportunity. Maybe a small game hunter can get in there and shoot a couple squirrels. So there's that. And I think that's an example of a regulation that they can change. So,
what are some other examples? Like top of my head, like crossbow.
So crossbow,
opening up the weapon decisions.
Yeah. So it depends. So there actually is a bill. So that's a statute So
Okay.
there is a bill that was just filed, I think the last couple of days. I saw where it gave the commission, or gave the Fish and Game Commission the power to, in some zones, reestablish rifle and handgun hunting. So there are those things that exist. That crossbow, I want to say, is a statute. I should know, and I forgive me. Like I said, I'm getting grilled here. But oh man, I'm pretty sure it's a statute.
Yeah, it's okay.
Yeah.
Do you know any other regulations off the top of your head that you know are regulations?
So yeah, our state leadership team I just put a post on this today in our sort of our communications platform, and the one that was getting the discussion sort of off the bat was that also, and we were talking about this before we went on air. And it's not necessarily a regulation; it's more like a practice of how our license is sort of set up, so that when you print it, it's like 7 pages long. Most other states, and it's 1 page. Like all the little tags fit on that 1 page. And there are situations where if you go and add a tag, or if you went and if there was a surplus deer tag, and you decide to pick one of those up late season, and it was still available in that particular zone, you purchase that and you go print your license. It will print out your existing tags. So your existing buck tags. So you take that printout, you take it, put it in wherever you keep your licenses. EPO checks you, and you pull out that, and now you have 2 duplicate tags. That's a violation. And so that little system glitch, maybe hopefully that could be tweaked, and somebody doesn't learn that one the hard way. So
yeah,
and you're not doing anything disingenuous. You just printed your new tag and
yep,
printed out a new one.
All right, no more grilling. Let's get into the mentor-mentee program, which is awesome, and we've talked about it with multiple people.
Yeah,
how we do need to recruit more hunters. We're aging out, and the hunter numbers are declining. So we need more mentors out there. All right, quick announcement: Heron Hill Winery is back. They really appreciated what we did for them last year, the first 4 months of the podcast. I appreciate what they did for us, which was give us a little bit of money to pay for the equipment that we use for this podcast. And if you enjoy this podcast, you want to see it keep going, what we need to see is y'all supporting the sponsors. So support Heron Hill Winery. If you're buying wine, don't go down to the store. You can do it on heronhill.com. Order whatever you want. They got a wide array of wines, and it's free shipping for anything that's 6 bottles or more. So you really can't beat that. And if you're a first-time buyer, use code HS5 for Hunt Suburbia 5, and you'll get an additional 5% on the first buy. After that, it's going to revert back to just what their volume discounts are. But every time you order, we're going to get credit for it. And that's going to help us keep a long-term sponsor happy, keep producing amazing content for you guys week after week. We're going to get better video equipment eventually. We're going to expand what we're doing for content. So it's not just the podcast, but if you love the podcast and you love wines, or your wives or your girlfriends love wines, somebody around you does, get it for great gift. Use code HS5 at checkout. If you're a first-time buyer, if you're repeating as a buyer, just go on there and order up, and we're going to get credit for it. And I really appreciate you guys supporting the sponsors. They appreciate it. Heron Hill, the official wine of the Hunt Suburbia podcast. Go to www.heronhill.com and use code HS5 for an additional 5% off your first purchase. If you're going back as a repeat buyer, you'll get their volume discounts. And just make sure your first time you're using code HS5 so that they know that we sent you. Thanks for the support. All right, just want to take a quick break and remind everybody that's listening, please, if you haven't, go on to iTunes or the podcast app, anywhere that you can leave a review on the podcast. iTunes and the Apple Podcast app are the best places to do so, because it really helps in the rankings. Go in there, leave a written review, tap on the 5-star rating. It's going to help us a lot in shooting up the rankings and getting this podcast out to more people, and I would really greatly appreciate that. Go and subscribe on our YouTube page if you haven't yet. It's Hunt Suburbia, youtube.com/Hunt Suburbia. Of course, follow us on all of our social medias. Continue to interact with us. And if you have any questions or anything you want to send me, shoot me an email at huntsuburbia@gmail.com. Really appreciate you guys. Myself, I feel like I'm mentoring through the podcast a lot. People are sending me emails all the time. And there's a couple guys that, are fairly new to hunting, last couple of years, and they just haven't even seen a buck or don't know how to identify a scrape or a rub and some simple stuff, right?
Yeah.
And, there are a couple of occasions where I'm going to meet these people, and I've got a couple in the future that I've got dates set. I'm going to go and walk around wherever they're hunting and show them some buck sign and try to help them figure out the puzzle and little things like that. But it's awesome that there is a place where, and John Joya, who I had on here,
he's part of the program, and
that's how you reached out to me after that podcast, right?
Yeah, exactly. So I'm interested in mentorship and bringing new hunters in, and our mentorship program has been going on for a couple of years, and it's a program that we're really proud of. It's specific to New England, and some of the other chapters in BHA have started to develop similar programs, and basically all we ask is that you become a member of BHA and reach out, and what we'll try to do is try to match you with someone who's in your sort of general geographic area or has this, and that's the key thing. So people come to us asking they want to start fly fishing or just ice fishing, or maybe it's deer hunting. And so a lot of it, you basically get connected with somebody. And a lot of the mentorship, it's interesting. They go different ways. Sometimes a lot of it's just like phone calls and emails and things like that. Other times people are getting together. It's really up to that particular.
They become hunting buddies.
Yeah, they become exactly. It's been pretty neat, to hear the stories. When I heard John's story, when I listened to your podcast, I didn't realize that he was in our program until he mentioned it, and. Which was awesome, so it's a really good system, and there's so much. I haven't really even been hunting for that long, and I can say that the people that I've met through BHA are so giving of their time and knowledge, and there's just some amazing woodsmen, just amazing, and I've had some interesting situations, some kind of weird situations I've just never been exposed to, that I can go to someone, and I'm not even in the mentorship program, but I'm just going to someone and say, hey, here's what happened. I was hunting, and I was hunting bears and a bear, and this was in Vermont, and I think the bear was being pushed by some houndsmen and didn't feel right. And, I have no idea. I could hear hounds, but they could be anywhere. But it just felt like it, what's that? I didn't grow up doing this. I didn't grow up with houndsmen around. So how do I engage the conversation? And so, that was, I mentioned that to somebody, and they're like, oh, well, here's a guy to talk to. And so I've kind of learned a lot. And since then, I've been invited by a couple of different people to go join some houndsmen and get a sense of what their experience is like. And it's super cool,
It is cool.
So it can be something as simple as that, or some real hand holding, all right, you're rigging your fly rod backwards.
Well, do you remember from the John Joya podcast that he didn't even have an arrow knocked, right?
Yeah.
He was in the tree and just didn't realize that you should have one ready to
go. Yeah. I mean, there's so many little things that, and like I said, some people are so are motivated, and they will take it upon themselves to learn and teach themselves everything. They're just like that. They're wired that way. Other people, they need some support.
Yeah.
And so that's important to have that. And sometimes it's just like you said, knowing what to look for. Because once you start seeing it, you see it all the time.
Yeah.
And it's amazing how your skills improve over time once you've got that little bit of mentorship.
And you take it for granted, too, some of the stuff that is just a second nature to us who have been hunting for 20 years. You're like a scrape, I didn't realize that people still who have hunted just don't know how to identify a scrape, but if it's foreign to you if it's your first year out
and
there.
there are great resources online. Like I learned so much.
YouTube.
YouTube. Oh yes, great. Yeah, I've referred to YouTube to fix my dryer, and I've referred to YouTube to like how do I gut a black bear?
Exactly.
So all those things, but it's a judgment-free kind of place, right? So that one-on-one relationship, there's not going to be a situation like on a public forum where someone's going to be like, kind of knock someone's, So you take all the ego out of it, you build a relationship, and it adds to the whole retention piece.
So have you noticed a lot of people signing up on the mentee side due to COVID this year?
Yeah, there was definitely a bit of a spike for sure. But at the same time, there were a lot of people stepped up to be mentors. I think a lot of people recognized that was happening, and kind of stepped up. One of the things that's been tough with COVID for us is like we do events all the time. Like we call them pint nights. We'll get together. We actually did one not too far away from here one time. That's how I got suckered into BHA and all the work that I'm doing now. But we do events in Boston. We do pint nights. We've brought in different speakers. We've done film events, all sorts of things, and it brings people in and it gives people an opportunity to just meet people, and then you'll find like, oh, you're new to hunting or you're interested in hunting. Mm-hmm. And like I had a one person approach. He was new to BHA. He wasn't sure what he was going to do. He was going to sign up for BHA, but he wasn't fully sold on the whole hunting experience. But he was really kind of curious, and so we just kind of had a dialogue over email. And I said, finally, I called him up, and he had purchased a shotgun, and I said, let's go duck hunt. And he'd gone out by himself a couple times, and we met up and took him out in the boat, went out to the marsh, and the only person to shoot a duck that day was that guy. So sweet shot.
That's
it was
awesome.
This duck came in right into the sun. He was super patient. I didn't have to coach. He knew. I mean, he waited for that thing to pass through the sun and just dropped it with one shot. It was amazing. I was like, what? Teach me something.
Was that in Revere?
No, yeah. No, it wasn't. But but in any case, yeah, it's a neat program, and those interactions can be, like I said, can be over email, phone, in person. Yeah.
So in order to become a mentee, get into that program, you have to become a member of BHA?
Yep. And so membership is easy. It's $35. Right now I've got something where you can get our public landowner T-shirt. You get a subscription to the Backcountry Journal, which is just great publication. Comes out 4 times a year, and a sticker and stuff, and and you get connected within the community too. So
and you help support conservation for many years, and
yep. That's the base membership. There's also some, I don't know if a lot of guys aspire to go out west, right, and do some of the big hunts. There's some really cool different levels of membership that where you can get something with one of our partners. So I know a couple guys who joined. They wanted to get one of those TP tents. Yeah. They're going to do one of those west trips, and so they joined, and they basically got their membership, like a lifetime membership, and this cool tent that they ended up using for I think they went on a mule deer hunt. And, it was like, you're helping conservation, and you get a sweet teepee tent with a little chimney. Something I have not done.
That's cool.
Yeah.
So what is just give everybody the website.
So there's a lot of different ways to connect. There's their website, backcountryhunters.org. That's the main website. You can find, you can link to the New England specific chapter page there. The New England chapter is on Instagram. We've got a YouTube channel. We've done a bunch of virtual events. They all are found on our YouTube channel. We have a Facebook group, New England Chapter Facebook group. So there's a lot of different ways to sort of connect and sort of get a sense of the community. You can join our Facebook group. You don't need to be a member, and it's good conversation within that group. So yeah.
Sweet. When I hear the name Backcountry Hunters and Anglers, I just always think about Me and my buddy Scotland, who was my fishing buddy, I just got him into hunting this year, and he got a buck in Vermont. We used to, in New Hampshire, take his canoe and lug it, throw it over our shoulders, and lug it into the backwoods and find, ponds and lakes that, aren't accessible by road.
Yeah.
And put a boat on there. And, every time we did, we'd think we might be the first person who's done this. It was a lot of work.
Yeah.
It was a crazy workout, but it was so fun getting into the backwoods and fishing a body of water that doesn't get a lot of pressure.
Yep.
And that was an extremely fun activity. Did you do anything like that? Or?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. That's part of I think that experience is what a lot of us kind of like seek. And I have not done any hunting trips out west. I've traveled pretty extensively fishing out west, Alaska, Central and South America, and in Europe as well. Fishing, but the hunting, like Alaska would be a dream.
Oh yeah,
type of trip.
Yeah,
but I always tell people like there's just great like a lot of my Vermont duck hunting trips is with my canoe. And I basically go down these rivers. Sometimes I'm jump shooting. Sometimes I'm setting up in these like little smaller areas and things like that. And there's no one around. I mean, it's like it's a big effort, like you're talking about, like climbing over beaver dams and it
feels so much better when you put a work in though.
Oh yeah. I would say that you guys were missing out on float tubes back in the day. That would have made your life a whole lot easier. But I did a bit of that, like packing in the float tube. And one time I was up in New Hampshire, southern White Mountains, and I hiked into this pond, and I am inflating my float tube, and I hear, I'm like, oh, it's a moose.
Yep.
And then I hear that same noise on the other side of me. I had two bulls that were kind of like positioning, and I'm right in the middle of them. Oh man, I basically got out in that float tube half inflated to kind of get out of the way.
Did they fight each other?
They walked past each other like with like ill intent, but they never actually like locked up and started smashing.
That's
or anything.
Cool.
Never
that's
seen
awesome.
it. There was it was a pretty cool thing. Maybe it was too early for them to be in that type of behavior, but they were checking each other out. But it was pretty cool.
You mentioned like float tubes and stuff. And nowadays there are companies out there that make inflatable kayaks, that you can pack up in your bag and
pack rafts, yeah.
We had and they're really nice kayaks. Like you just inflate them and you can go anywhere.
Yeah, I had another one of the COVID losses. I had a trip out to pack raft trip to the Bob Marshall Wilderness, we had to kind of cancel that because of COVID, but it was one of those. It would be like a hike and float out, basically. It would have been on my list.
And definitely. I know a lot of people go to the Adirondacks to do remote camping. And there was a guy I used to work with 10, 12 years ago. Just guy was in IT looking at screens constantly, right? And every year he would take 2 weeks vacation straight, go solo to the Adirondacks with a canoe and paddle up 5-10 miles up a river or stream and just be in the middle of nowhere by himself. And that's how he would like decompress. And it just sounds so awesome.
The canoe pack trips. There's a couple guys on the New England chapter leadership that go on these. They get together with their spouses and they do like these 2-week floats like up through Canada and it's just it's an adventure to say the least. Yeah. So,
and people don't realize how much land can open up by just going up a waterway. Those were the highways of the Indians.
Exactly. And it's way better than dragging a deer in a lot of cases. I took out one of the deer I got this year. I took out by boat. There was no way I was going to drag. When it just happened to drop near a waterway, and so I'm like, all right, I'm gonna stick it in this tree. I'm gonna go back home, get the boat, and
it's gonna be so
get
much
it
easier.
Oh my god, yeah,
and fun.
Oh yeah, way more fun. Fun.
Like I posted this earlier. Me and Scotland on a pike float, and you mentioned Vermont. I I love Vermont for fishing. I think Vermont fishing is better than Massachusetts' fishing. If you take out the ocean.
Saltwater, yeah.
Freshwater fishing, Vermont's way better, but I think Massachusetts, the hunting's better, depending on what you're looking for with the age class and all that. But we love doing this pike float, or 7 to 10 miles on this river, and it's a lazy river meandering through, and you get out there and you're in the middle, the middle of that trip. There's absolutely nobody around you for 10 miles either way. There's a spot you can stop and get out, and there's this gigantic field that's just probably 1,000 acres, and you stand looking across it, you don't see a soul, and it's just so refreshing.
Yeah, I had this quest where I was kind of trying to catch for like a number of years, I wanted to catch a nice northern within a half hour of Boston for like a stretch of years, which you can do. And there's some,
but it's hard, isn't it?
It's a lot of casts, but there's some great spots. And especially a year where there wasn't ice, because the ice fishermen, they know where these fish are. Mm-hmm. But if you have a year there's not great ice and you get there early season in the spring, after ice out, just cast either huge flies or just giant inline spinners. It was a blast. It's like that was my thing for such a long time. Like that half hour in Boston, I'm catching this huge pike, but there's houses there, there's a parking lot there. Oh, yeah. So it's not that experience. I think I prefer that experience, but it was still pretty cool to have that opportunity.
But it's similar to like the suburban hunting experience where, when I was living in Quincy and Somerville and stuff, and I was just never thought about even that you could hunt within a half hour of Boston and find some good deer, but there are. Yeah. Same thing. Yeah. If you look hard enough, you can find the fish.
Yeah. And that's, you can still have that great experience, which I think is the key thing, right? Like to get out in the woods and to know a section of woods really well. That's definitely a benefit, because oftentimes when I'm hunting up north, especially if like you're tracking or just kind of going off fresh sign, you really don't know where you're at. Like it's the first time you might have walked in this particular area and you're just reacting off what you're finding. Mm-hmm. Whereas, down here you get to know a place and you're like, I bet that hawk is going to cruise by. There he is. So things like that, you get to sort of see the patterns of nature. It's pretty cool. Yeah.
So where, you said you actually are pretty recent to hunting. How'd you get into hunting, and when did you get into?
I've only been hunting for about 5 or 6 years. So I am a science educator. I'm a teacher, and I teach AP Environmental Science and an Environmental Science class and biology at a prep school. And one particular year, I had like a little sabbatical, actually it was a paternity leave, and I had a student. I spent a lot of time talking about food systems as an area that I've studied for a long time, and I had a student ask me like, "Hey, when we do the food unit, when you come back from leave, can you talk about hunting? Because my family sources a lot of our protein from hunting." And I said, "Yeah, sure. Sure. Like I don't know anything about hunting, but I will do a little bit of research and a little bit of reading, and I will." I can come back and we can talk a little bit more. Have a good talk about it. So while I was on leave, I dove into a bunch of different books on the ethics of hunting and why people hunt. And as I was reading these things, I was like, I grew up on a small farm, and I was thinking to myself, like, why don't I do this? Like, this is like, I value this, the food system, where my food comes from. Like, why don't I do this?
You were already a big fisherman?
Oh, yeah. I've been like hardcore fisherman for such a long time. It was never that I was anti-hunting or anything. I just hadn't really been exposed to it. Mm-hmm. So I had one family member who hunted down in Virginia, and I called up my cousin, and he said, yeah, get ready and come down. And so that was my first exposure to classic deer camp. Like a small, they had this old cottage. They called it the Troll Hole, and a bunch of guys from different parts of Virginia out in the Blue Ridge Mountains coming together, and it was awesome. It was an
even
awesome
that experience is enough to like.
Oh my God, yeah.
Hunting, just the deer camp.
Yeah, and so I got my first deer with a rifle. It was like in the closing moments of the last day of the hunt, buzzer beater, and ever since then, I broke down the deer, the whole thing, and then come back here, got a bow, and was kind of off the races. So yeah, other than that exposure, like I didn't really have a mentor or anything like that. I was sort of went kind of like my own road. Again, did a lot of reading, did a lot of research, but yeah, I kind of stumbled into it because of what I do, teaching and talking about food.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
And so do you think that part of the solution that, for recruitment is maybe there's the low-hanging fruit is there's a lot of fishermen out there that just never have got into hunting, but that seems like an easy conversion, right? How do we get more fishermen into hunting?
Yeah, I think, well, fishermen, it's a tough thing because, that the season overlap, it can be like as a someone who's like big, like fall run striped bass kind of guy.
I went through that with Scotland too.
Yeah. So that's a hard thing for people.
Run.
I can make the pitch. Like a lot of the people that I see coming in through BHA, they're interested in the food. They're interested in like local, being a locavore. They're interested in just understanding landscapes better. Like those are the things where a lot of people come in, and I think this is where like our traditional hunting community and the sort of the newer kind of segment of hunting is where there's a little bit of conflict, a little bit of friction, because the people who are coming in with slightly different values and slightly different histories. So like you talked about earlier at the beginning, like, feeling guilty about walking in through a neighborhood or whatever because you feel like you're doing something wrong. Well, imagine that for someone who's a new hunter who doesn't have the tradition, doesn't have like any of that family back, and like people are like, what are you doing? So yeah, it's kind of an interesting thing. I think, we have to kind of recognize that, that the path that people are on is very like, my path is, I'm like a big time archery deer hunter. Like that's my main focus, but I get after squirrels. I've discovered and really love, waterfowl. So it's like, and I've put in a couple of seasons, my second season kind of hunting bear unsuccessfully. But I've had opportunities, and that was something that I said I would never do. 5 years ago, I said I wouldn't do it. But why is that? Just because I just didn't really see like, I think it's hard for me to go back completely and understand my mindset, but I think part of it was like, I just see them differently. But then as I've sort of been exposed to the hunting community and I've listened to different people, I think that, one, it's an important sort of management thing, but it's like the meat I've had bear. It's amazing.
It is good.
Amazing. And it's something that it's an animal that you can utilize a lot of, which I think is pretty cool,
I'm that way with coyotes a little bit. Like I've had opportunities to shoot coyotes and I just haven't. When I was a little kid and everybody around deer camp, they all shot coyotes at will if they saw one. I took a couple of pot shots at coyotes as a kid, but I think I wanted to miss and I never hit them. Yeah. And I don't know, something about coyotes, and I like to eat what I shoot.
And that's how I am too. With coyotes, I've had them come in, and I've had some really cool encounters. I like watching them. They're doing the same thing that we're doing, Right. But yeah, coyotes is another whole topic. They're a real fascinating animal. Yeah. So.
And they're really adaptable.
Amazingly.
And you read the studies. The more I look into it, the more I do believe that you're never gonna get the coyote population down to it, because they can adapt if you shoot if you do a significant number on the population in 1 year, then they're gonna have bigger litters. Yep. And as soon as you take out one coyote, other coyotes are constantly roaming and finding new territory. So another coyote is going to fill that spot, and it's just a new face every year. And
they're like I have a lot of respect for them. I had the opportunity to go on some when I was in grad school. I had to go on join some scientists, do some live trapping of them, putting like telemetry straps on them, tagging them and stuff like that, monitoring their movements, and they're doing some amazing stuff, like living in the suburbs, down the Cape, doing crazy swims across the canal, stuff like that.
Yeah, and again, it's like I don't. If you want to shoot a coyote and it's legal for you to do it, go and do it. Like everybody's got their own ethics on stuff. Like we talked about earlier. So no problem with it. Let's we're running a little long here, but I want to talk about your season last year. You got three deer with a bow and one with a muzzleloader in Vermont, right?
Yeah. So my deer here. So the 2 bucks. I do most of my. I'm one of those ghillie suit wearing people.
You wear a ghillie?
Yeah.
Sweet.
And so most of my deer have been on the ground.
Awesome.
But I started using the saddle a little bit more, and it turned out that all my archery deer this year came from the saddle.
Now, are you wearing your ghillie suit in the saddle?
Sometimes
you like it.
Sometimes I will wear the top. You do kind of blend in really nicely, and sometimes I don't go out knowing what I'm going to do. So like if I see sign or a situation where I bump something and I'm pretty confident they didn't see me, or maybe they just heard me. They didn't smell me. They don't know what I am. So I might make a quick decision and hunt the ground. But I'm pretty mobile, so I can get up in a tree and kind of go that way if I have to. So no monster deer or anything this year, but I knew I had some family stuff come up, and I was gonna lose a month of the season. So there was a little bit of pressure to fill the freezer, which I was able to do. But the muzzleloader deer in Vermont, I put in, for all the local units around me. This was the early season antlerless muzzleloader tag, and put in for all my local zones in Vermont. And as a last choice 6 was the zone B, I think it is, with 9,000 tags. I'm like, I'll put that one in. And of course, that's the one I get a tag in. Now I'm thinking going up there, that's going to be like.
And you never hunted that area.
Never hunted that area. And I'm thinking it's going to be just like the part of Vermont that I'm in. Like no posted signs and, some public land and, community that understands hunting. But Zone B, just north of Burlington, along the lake there.
Oh, that's where you were?
Everything's posted. People make money selling posted signs in that town at the hardware stores. I have never seen so many posted signs.
What was it, like Colchester, Milton, or was it were you on the islands? Or
No. I was. I wish I could remember the towns. Off the top of my head, I can't. But there were a few wildlife management areas that I kind of scoped out, and I thought oh man, I'll take the canoe. I'll canoe in. Nobody's gonna go out there. Well, no, guys who are duck hunting on the lake drive their boats up and then do a muzzleloader hunt for deer. It was a grind, and again, I'm getting excited. My best deer of the year was a doe.
Yep.
I found this little piece, and it was just a nice little. It was like a public up against private that wasn't posted, and I was out there. It was kind of like towards the end of the day, and I just hear all this crackling and rumbling, and it was like a herd of deer that came out. And
wow. That's rare in Vermont.
There was it was about a dozen, and so I on the edge was a nice doe. So I put my muzzleloader against a tree, and I shoot this a lot. I shoot my muzzleloader a lot in the summertime, so I was confident with it, and settled in, pulled the trigger. It was about 110 yards, and
wow,
everything scatters, and I'm like looking around, like I missed. Like they don't all take off. The one I'm thinking I shot is lingering around. I'm like, what the hell? How did I miss? So I'm like, I don't have anything ready. Like I'm frantically, trying to pull together reload, and I get settled. Finally get reloaded, and there's still like 4 deer out there.
Were they all does in that group?
They were all does, that I could tell, and that's what I was keen on because that's what I had a tag for.
Yep.
And I'm about to pull the trigger on this one, but it starts hopping, starts bouncing. I was like, oh God. And I'm like so close to just firing one off. And I'm like, I'll go back in the morning. But I almost did. So I'm like, well, I'll at least figure out where they came from. So I walk over a little rise, dead deer. I don't know what would have happened if I pulled the trigger, dropped another one. I would have been screwed.
Oh yeah, if it wasn't the same one.
Yeah, so it was just one of those things. Like in the blast of the muzzleloader, and that there was just too many. There was a bunch of deer, and I didn't do a head count in the heat of the moment. Thank God I didn't pull the trigger. That would have been a tough one to explain to the local warden.
Yep.
But learned my lesson.
Well, that's an awesome story.
But it was one of those it was one of those deer that I felt like, man, the odds were against me. There was so many people. Every wildlife management area had like at least a dozen trucks. There was no private land access, even though there's a good amount of ag up there.
So did you access this one by boat, by canoe?
No, this one was this was just a walk in the back corner of this section. I think it was not well marked, and I was just using Onyx and found it and made it happen. I think just nobody was desperate enough to walk that far. So, I would have really liked to have the story be in the canoe, but in that particular one, I was just thrilled that it came together.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah, so when you're like working so hard, it's like a set season's 4 days, right? And you take
that's the cool thing, and it was the doe only season, but it was a new thing this year.
Yeah, it was just one of those really lucky situations where I happened to have a day off from work, and I was camping up there by myself. And it just came together.
What do you shoot for muzzleloader?
I use a CVA Acura mountain rifle.
Yep.
It's an MR.
Yep.
I love that thing. It's short.
I believe that's exactly the same gun that I have right now.
And I've, I'm going to play around with. As I mentioned, I shoot it a lot in the summer at the range. But it's a pain in the butt to clean. And so some people have kind of been putting me on using loose powder and kind of playing around with that. I've been using the pellets for it. And they say people have been, people more knowledgeable than I have been mentioning that you'll find it a lot easier to clean after when shooting than with the pellets and this particular combination that I was using.
Yeah, the pellets are super messy.
Yeah, but like it's really accurate, and I've been pleased with it. In both I got 2 years ago, I shot a buck in his bed, never got up. It was like, so it's accurate, and I like carrying it. It just feels good to carry.
Yep. I've liked it a lot, but this year I'm switching over to Woodman Arms. Have you heard about that?
Oh yeah. In fact, I was at the range this summer. A guy next to me in the lane next to me just picked one up. It was beautiful, super nice, compact feel. Again, that's another one that feels really good in the hands. And
made right in New Hampshire.
Made right in New Hampshire. Yep. And I just happened to have my like one of those laser kind of bore sighter things.
Yep.
And I let him borrow it, and we got that thing shooting pretty good. So that was cool, wasn't it? It's a nice one.
It's a unique gun, and there's no hammer on it, and it's like a cross bolt safety. It feels like a rifle. And it's funny what you say about the powder. They recommend shooting Blackhorn 209 through it.
Yep.
And when you do, and you use the loose powder, you never have to clean the gun.
What?
They tell you never to clean the gun.
Sold.
Yeah. You literally don't have to clean it.
Yeah.
And I heard that years ago, and it's been on my list of like, all right, my next gun's going to be a Woodman, but they're partnering with me. So Timmy Bolduc, who I mentioned before you came, he's a great guy. He was on the podcast, and he is their head of sales, and he might even be a partner in the business. I don't know, but he called me up, and he's like, we want to partner with you guys. And we love the podcast. They're going to make me a nice, gun. He's going to choose the walnut for me. And I can't wait to shoot it.
That's so great. Yeah.
And never have to clean a muzzleloader again, dude. That's the big thing.
Yeah. There's just something about carrying that muzzleloader through the woods and that time of year.
Muzzleloader is one of my favorite ways to hunt.
Yeah, I mean, I love the bow, but the muzzleloader is just cool. But
expands your opportunity in Vermont, especially. Like I always loved it. It was late season in Vermont, so you have more chance of hunting in snow.
Yeah,
and the
that's a tough season, and that's why I think that early season antlerless opportunity is a good
awesome.
one. That was a great addition for Vermont, and like I said, I would not recommend the unit that I was in just based on how hard it was and the amount of competition. But it was a great time of year to be out there, and it was a nice break from being around here.
Yeah, for sure.
From hunting the burbs.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
Even though Vermont will call that territory north of Burlington the burbs.
Yeah, it sort of is. Yeah, it sort of is. But it didn't feel as much like when you get out of town. But yeah. So.
Well, Chris, I really appreciate you coming, man. It was a pleasure.
It was great to be
interview
here.
you. Sorry about grilling you in the beginning.
No problem. And if anybody has questions, the easiest way to get in touch with us is at Massachusetts at backcountryhunters.org. That's our email. Or connect with us on Instagram and or Facebook. I manage a lot of the social accounts, so messages that come my way or will eventually come my way. So I should see it. So yeah,
cool. Yeah, go become a member. I'm going to be a member tonight. I'll probably sign up tonight.
Awesome.
Yeah,
gotta get your T-shirt. I don't have the public landowner T-shirt on, but yeah, it's a.
I'm going to get one of those shirts.
Yeah,
those shirts are great.
Yeah. And actually, there is a promotion going on. So I don't know when this will air, but at least for the next few weeks, I'll have a link. I'll put the link on our Instagram and our Facebook group page. I'll try to do that tomorrow. That has a link to the new membership promotion, which has one of those public landowner T-shirts.
Sweet.
So
yeah, great. Again, really appreciate it, man.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Yeah, thanks a lot. That was a lot of fun. Thanks for listening to the Hunt Suburbia podcast. We hope you enjoyed it. We're going to release an episode every single Sunday throughout the season, throughout the entire year, and we will possibly be releasing some bonus episodes here and there throughout the week as people, come in freshly off a bow kill and tell their stories. We hope that happens throughout the season. There might be weeks where you get 2 or 3 bonus episodes. You might not get one for a couple of weeks, but there will be some bonus episodes. But you can count on us every single Sunday to have a new interview on throughout the season. Once again, thank you so much for listening, and we'll see you next week. Big bucks I've been dreaming often, every night till I'm in a coffin. Vermont woods to the burbs of Boston, I'm looking for a tree to get lost in. Crisp mornings, little dust in the snow. Quality time, just me and my bow. Fall evenings, I know just where to go for some quality times for me and my bow. It's just me and my